Is there really any larger expense to writing a really good quality story? Granted, yeah, you've got to hire maybe a better writer. But then again, at the same time, look at what Disney's been doing lately. Who do they bring in? You bring in Charmin Obaid-Chinoy to do this new Rey Skywalker movie that nobody's, God knows if that'll ever come out at this point. We just had the second anniversary of Rey Palpatine walking out on stage at a Star Wars celebration. And we went to the new Star Wars celebration last weekend in Japan, and Daisy Ridley wasn't even there. $25 synth DS Weebzer. DEI hiring is certainly a problem, but is there even a talent pool of sane people to hire from? I didn't know a single non-blue-haired in the arts college. Oh, God. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think more people need to study art and communications. That's part of the problem, is the people that tend to gravitate to a lot of those kind of things nowadays are unfortunately, more often than not, the most radicalized wackos possible. And so now you have Hollywood studios, they're hiring all these younger kids out of college, and sometimes 35 and 40-year-old overgrown kids, overgrown children, and you wind up getting what we get. I have a daughter that's not blue-haired, spray painted and nose rings and all this crap. She is an art major. She's doing graphic design. We had a long conversation driving back and forth back to college this weekend. And about this very thing, about how much has changed over the years when it comes to actual art, like hanging on the wall, like paintings, portraiture, sculpture, and all this kind of stuff. Because I even asked her, do you think that any one of your graduate students or anybody you know or any real modern artist out there these days, could they create the Night Watch from Rembrandt? Could they create some of the stuff that Da Vinci did? Could they create the Sistine Chapel? I seriously doubt it. I bet 99+% of the quote unquote professional artists out there don't have the skill and the talent to do that. Because look at the stuff that they mostly look at what we see. We always make jokes about, here's a guy that sticks a banana on the wall with a piece of duct tape and sells it for $1 million or whatever. I mean, it's laziness. And you're going to get that. This was the conversation I was having with her. I said, the problem is you get that in everything. You get that in movies. You get that in television. You get that in every facet of the arts out there. She was talking about how she doesn't like she used to love to read. She still loves to read books. But she said, Dad, I'm getting so bored with the books. I'm like, I keep picking up new books and I wind up throwing them out because it's the same story over and over and over again in every book I'm reading. I said, what are you reading? I don't remember the names she told me, but they were all newer books, And I'm thinking, try reading some of the older stuff from 20, 30, 40 plus years ago. I said, the problem is it sounds like the books you're reading and the problem you're having with the repetition and the complete lack of originality is the same thing that we're dealing with when it comes to film and television and everything else. The level of talent is simply not out there anymore. I've asked people in the past, I said, look at the Catholic church we go to. It was a building that was built 25 years ago. Look at the churches built today versus the churches that were built just 150 years ago, 200 years ago. Radically different. The level of artistry, the style, the talent that it took, the craftsmanship it took to build, for example, Immaculate Conception Church in downtown New Orleans, the Jesuit church in downtown New Orleans. That is a gorgeous church. It was built maybe 200 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but it was 200 or less or fewer years ago. It looks like a traditional European Gothic church with all of the ornamental, everything, the scroll work, the way it's built, everything. I mean, it's sandwiched in between two big buildings, so it doesn't have a lot of the outside that's pretty on the side like you'd see from some big European Gothic cathedrals that are sitting out in the middle of a giant area. But inside, it's exquisite. You look at the churches that are built today, they're bland. Sterile.
Yep.
They're sterile. They're ugly. It's like walking into the brand new community center at Epcot. It's a big, ugly, white area that's sterile. And it just, they stick an altar up front with a crucifix behind it. And it's like, well, God bless it. I'm on holy ground. I'm not complaining about that, but it does make me wonder what happened to the skill and the beauty in art. I don't know. But it's not there anymore.
We stopped appreciating art. We stopped We stopped trying to make beautiful things, and that's what happened in entertainment too. Is we actually started celebrating ugly things. And this is for real. Like, that's what killed Star Wars. We decided we were going to make something ugly. We decided we're going to subvert your expectations. We're going to dissect it, right? It's a deconstruction. That was the whole thing, deconstructionism.
Right.
So you had this bland dystopian, what is the word for that? The 70s architecture. What's the word for that, guys?
Art Deco, dead tech, whatever,
Yeah.
Postmodernistic.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you take that and you combine it with deconstructionism, and it's like, okay, but I get what you're saying, that there are criticisms to be made, but could we have beautiful things back again? I'd like that. Can we have heroes again? I'd like that. Can we have the stained glass windows and all that? I'd like that again, please.
Look, I'm going to say this. I'm not defending him, but this kind of crap wouldn't have happened under Harvey Weinstein's watch. I'm just going to say it. It's true.
You're not wrong. As terrible a human being as he was. But thing is with this, and everybody, oh my God, Valiant Renegades defending Harvey. No, I'm defending his mindset when it came to film production.
No, we're talking about business and business.
Not the horrible things that Harvey did in his.
Right, dude's a demon. Yeah,
no,
dude's a demon.
He's evil as shit. But the thing is that Harvey Weinstein, and it wasn't exclusively him, to Tom's point. The difference is
there was a lot of cocaine and campbellism. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah. As a Hollywood producer, he and all the other Hollywood producers of 20, 30, 40 years ago, they wanted to tell really good quality stories and make money from it. I mean, that was kind of the point. And they knew how to be storytellers, or at least get the people involved that knew how to tell stories. They didn't approach a project, and the first thing that they did was, okay, we need a DEI checklist, and we need to have a casting director, the DEI consultant in here from the casting director's office, because we have to make sure that as we make this film, we have to hit this criteria. Otherwise, we will not be Oscar or award eligible. And this is an actual thing. I'm not making this up. This is how it is now. Everything begins not from a standpoint of art and creativity. Everything now, and for the last 8 to 10 years, it seems like, with a lot of major Hollywood stuff, seems like it has absolutely begun from a standpoint of the message, as Critical Drinker would say, the message, representation, diversity, everything else. And then, because there's no talent involved and there's no skill involved from a writing and storytelling standpoint, all they can do is take all of the stuff that has happened before them and then try to reimagine it for modern audiences. And then we get this cold, sterilized, corporatized slop that we get. Sinners is a great example this weekend of how you can have a movie that has a lot of diversity in it, but it is not, apparently nobody's regarding this as a DEI type picture. It's just Ryan Coogler making a movie with his buddies like Michael B. Jordan. And some people have said it had some themes in it or whatnot like this, but it's a totally original movie. It wasn't adapted from a video game. It wasn't adapted from an old movie. It wasn't adapted from a book. It wasn't adapted from real life events. People were asking me, well, wait a minute. What about Sound of Freedom from a couple of summers ago? Well, Sound of Freedom technically was an adaptation. It was an adaptation of real life events. It wasn't a totally original story.
Well, just about everything is, but yeah, anymore in Hollywood, 9 times out of 10, nothing is original anymore. But yeah,
right, and that's
Sinners
why
is a rare thing now. That's the problem. It used to be the norm. It was like most movies were based on books or original scripts.
And I mean, as of right now, Hollywood has got to get back to actually producing things of beauty and quality. Because here's
like
the
movie
thing.
stars, exactly.
All the other examples I gave you, like especially the architecture. Let's just take that for a minute. Right? The architecture today, very different than it was a while back. Churches and things, I understand that they can build a modern Catholic church for, a couple of $1 million or whatever the case is. And if they wanted to make something look visually, artistically, even just on the inside, like we had churches that were being built 150 to 200 years ago, instead of that, it might cost 2 or 3 times as much, or maybe 10 times as much. I don't know. We can have that conversation. But when it comes to writing and storytelling for film and television, is there really any larger expense to writing a really good quality story versus a crappy one? Granted, yeah, you've got to hire maybe a better writer. But then again, at the same time, look at what Disney's been doing lately. Who do they bring in? People like what? Nia DaCosta to do the Marvels. You bring in Charmin Obaid-Chinoy to do this new Rey Skywalker movie that nobody's. God knows if that'll ever come out at this point. You
Yeah, it's
realize,
going.
yeah, we just had the second anniversary of Ray Palpatine walking out on stage at a Star Wars celebration, and we went to the new Star Wars celebration last weekend in Japan, and Daisy Ridley wasn't even there. Kind of makes you wonder. They overpay. Like Disney overpays these kind of people to do work that they have no business, no talent, no skill level, no history of being able to do.
Why do they pick them, Valiant? Why do they pick them?
They're not men. That's it. That's the criteria.
Exactly.
Like, not white, not male. You're hired, and we're going to pay you.
Right. Can you imagine if that was the criteria for, let's say you needed a marble statue, and let's say there's like 20 people in the world who can still make marble statues at the level of what we saw in ancient Rome and Greece.
Michelangelo's, David, right?
Right. And let's say that you said, pick one who's not white and male. That's all I need. I don't care about anything else. He can't have a wiener, and he can't be from Europe. Okay.
Right.
And then they bring you somebody who definitely isn't qualified, and then you can't believe that it comes out looking like a pile of rubble at the end of the day. Shocked.
It's just, look, you're going to either hire people based on quality or you're not. And that doesn't mean that they'll all be white or black or Hispanic or Asian or whatever. It just means that you put the merit and the quality, in this case, of the storytelling first. It's like, oh no, how we have, since we're going to tell a story about fill in the blank that's not white dudes, right? We have to hire somebody who isn't a white dude to write it. I got news for you. Some of the greatest movies and characters ever written that were about women, that were about not white people, were written by white people. And many of them were Jewish. Oh my God.
And you know how they did it? They took it away. All accountability and reason.
One of the greatest lines ever yet. Jack Nicholson's line from As Good as It Gets. How do you write women so well? I think of a man and I take away reason and accountability. There's so much talent out there. Everybody can do it. And it's but not everybody does. And you've got to hire the right. This is where Hollywood is right now. Anyway.
And this is the lie, Valiant. This is the religious lie that they've all bought into. Mm-hmm. This is truly like a religious lie, which is equity. Because the flip side of equity is they not only believe that you should have an equitable outcome, but they also believe that everybody has an equitable ability. Except for them, because they're special. They're special.
Right.
But when they hire somebody, they don't need a white guy who might be the best at something. Like if he is the best, well, that's just an offense to humanity because everyone's equitable except them. They're special.
You hit the nail on the head when one of the first sentences you said. The problem with equity, and remember, that's a word that has now replaced equality. Equality. And it's been slowly replaced over the last 5 to 10 years by the Marxist cabal out there with equity.
Because they know most people don't know the difference.
Well, and the idea is that we used to talk about as the foundational or one of the foundational American principles was the equality of everybody in terms of opportunity, right? Everybody is equal under the law. And I know people want to argue, oh, well, that's right. White people, but no. The law is the law. Everybody in this country has the same opportunity the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness.
Are judges perfect? No, but the law is finite. You are correct. That's the thing.
That's it. Everybody has the same opportunity under law. Now, whether or not you choose to avail yourself of the opportunity, regardless of where you started in life, everybody has their own struggles they have to go through. I know some people say, well, it's not fair because this person is privileged. And this is where things started going off the rails. And now we're at a point where we're replacing equality of opportunity. Now we have to have equality of outcome. That was the next thing.
Well, and not only that, like going off of what both of y'all are saying, back to what Pro was saying, though, is it's not so much even that, they're equating like your talent is equitable, right? It's that if you're white and you're talented, the only reason you're talented is because you're white and you always had an upper hand. Couldn't possibly be that you're just talented, right? Like that's the thing.
So here's the problem.
Sorry, you were saying, Valley. I just wanted to jump in before we got too far down.
It's a great point. 30 years ago, the way we all knew this, and this is, by the way, the argument about, well, things weren't equal because, of slavery and all that. Listen, when the documents were made, it was an aspirational, inspirational goal that we were all supposed to get to that point because that was what was ideal. It was the best version of humanity. And so let's go there. Okay. So we've been trying to get there. Here's the idea of it. Okay. Michael Jordan, I think he's the best basketball player ever. Okay.
Yes.
But Michael Jordan is still no more valuable in terms of his human worth than the homeless guy outside the stadium. In terms of like net worth, totally different. In terms of talent, totally different. In terms of human being and divine worth, like intrinsic value, same, equal. The problem is equity comes in and says, okay, that's not enough. Michael Jordan, you worked freaking hard to become the player you are. And yeah, you've got some advantages that made this possible. But unfortunately for you, Michael Jordan, we have to have equity now. So we're going to need you and the homeless guy to put in the same amount of practice for basketball, which is to say, he's outside sleeping on the concrete and doing things that he shouldn't do that's put him here. And we need you to go do that as well and stop playing basketball because he's not going to come up. Like, he's not going to go any better. We've tried. We've given him assistance. He won't come up. So the only way to make this equitable now is for you to go out there and sleep on the concrete and stop playing basketball. That's the problem with equity. It pulls the best down.
Well, it does, but it's even more stupid than that. And from a financially destructive standpoint, we talked about like the WNBA before, perfect example. Yep, and again, this ties in. This is the same thing. Hiring people like, again, hiring Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, hiring Nia DaCosta, people that came out and admitted they've never done anything like this before. They just made little cheap, inexpensive documentaries where they like making men feel uncomfortable or whatever. They'd never made a $200 million movie before. They had no business doing this kind of thing, but they were brought in for it. Why? Equity. And the point is that it's the same argument as in the WNBA. Hey, we're professional ball players just like the men. Hey, we play professional games just like the men. Hey, we practice just like the men. Hey, we should get paid like the men. The problem with that is, of course, is that the WNBA only generates about 1/20th of the revenue of the NBA. And the WNBA wouldn't even be able to exist but for the welfare, the financial subsidies coming from the NBA from the men, including television contracts and cash. Okay? Well, they only make about $200 million a year. So, I mean, they can't even cover their costs. And the point is, we think about this with television and film right now. A lot of what's going on is this idea that they have to drive towards equity, right? Well, let's see. We gave all of these white guy directors, we spent billions and billions of dollars having them make films for us. Now it's everybody else's turn. Well, wait, hang on. Can everybody else do it? Well, maybe some of them out there, but we have to do it. We got to hire them anyway. We have to hire everybody else anyway at this point. No looking at whether or not that individual person, like a Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, could we have a woman of color direct a Star Wars show or a Marvel movie like Nia DaCosta or anybody else? Or could we have a woman of color do a big budget DC? Sure. Absolutely. As long as they show up and show that they are, that they actually merit that. Do they have the talent? Can they tell the story? Can they do it? Because if all we're trying to do is take, this was a man's franchise, right? Male audience franchise, Star Wars, whatnot. And we want to make Star Wars for the girls. If we're bringing somebody in for that, then no, you're not hiring the best people for the job. At least not in the traditional business sense that says, I need to make some money. You got to pick one or the other. And a company like Disney, who can sit there and basically capitalize its theme parks in order to make up for the disastrous losses that they are incurring from the film and television side, that's only going to work so long if the theme parks don't hang on for the next 5 years like they are now. So Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.